They say a Deathworlder once survived being eaten alive, and then asked for seconds. The comment dropped into the chamber like a spark into dry leaves. Every alien in the room rippled, clicked, or shifted in nervous disbelief. And yet they leaned closer. The rumor about humans had been spreading across the academy like wildfire for weeks, told in fragments, whispered in quarters, and exaggerated with each retelling. Most of the cadets had never seen a human before, though they imagined one would be obvious, taller, louder, hungrier, some kind of nightmare forged in gravity and storms. None of them looked at the quiet figure sitting against the curved wall, her hands folded in her lap, her dark hair falling over her eyes as though she wasn't paying attention. The chamber was a study hall, amphitheater-shaped, its walls lined with shifting panels of bioluminescent text. At the center was a projection of galactic maps, and the lesson had long since dissolved into speculation and gossip. A scaled Very leaned forward on its tail, tongue flicking. I heard their world rains acid every season, and only the strongest survive. A cluster of thin-framed Uran clicked their mandibles. No, the gravity alone would crush us into paste. It is said their bones are harder than ship plating. A horned Jelkin smacked the tabletop with a claw. Fools. The truth is simpler. Deathworlders feel no fear. That is why they are sent into the worst battles. Mira stayed still, breathing quietly, listening. She knew this pattern by now. Every story added a new layer of myth. Every exaggeration made her species seem less like a people, and more like some monster hidden in the shadows of the galaxy. She could have corrected them. She could have told them that Earth was full of sunlight, oceans, music, and arguments over coffee. But the Academy was not a place where correction was safe. Letting them talk was safer. It was almost funny. Except when it wasn't. One of the Uran twitched its antenna toward her. What do you think, Mira? You are always quiet. Perhaps your species has seen one of these Deathworlders. She raised her eyes slowly, and for a moment, she felt the weight of all of them watching her. Her voice, when it came, was calm, almost soft. I've heard the same rumors you have. Nothing more, nothing less. They accepted, turning back to their speculation, forgetting her again. That was the strange gift she had discovered. Humans were unremarkable enough in appearance that with a bit of silence, she passed unnoticed. None of them suspected that the very creature they feared was sitting within arm's reach. The Jelkin wasn't finished though. It leaned in, voice lowered like a conspirator. The instructors say a Deathworlder is on this very campus. They brought it here to test if it can be trained. A murmur spread low and uneasy. The Varathi hissed in dismay. Here among us. That is madness. The Jelkin's eyes glowed with relish. Madness, or brilliance. Imagine learning beside such a thing. Imagine if it loses control. Mira felt her stomach tighten, but her face gave nothing away. She had been chosen precisely because she could vanish in plain sight. The Galactic Council wanted to know if a human could survive the Academy, if one of her kind could pass their trials, learn their systems, prove that humanity was more than a rumor. But nobody had told her peers. To them, she was just another exchange cadet from a nondescript planet in the Outer Rim. The secrecy was supposed to protect her, though at times it felt more like a trap. The stories escalated. Someone claimed Deathworlders breathe poison. Another said they hunted beasts larger than starships with nothing but sharpened sticks. The Uran shivered, mandibles rattling. I heard they can stare into your mind and see your worst memories. Mira nearly laughed at that. The only thing she could see in anyone's mind was how loudly they spoke. She shifted her weight, and let her gaze wander over the chamber. Above them, the map displayed shifting territories, border disputes marked in glowing red. The Academy prided itself on training diplomats and strategists, yet here were its brightest cadets spinning tales like frightened children around a campfire. And she was the ghost story come to life. Her thoughts drifted back to Earth, to rain on concrete, to laughter in crowded kitchens, to the raw ache of homesickness that settled into her bones every night. She had never thought of herself as dangerous, but to them she was an apex creature from a cursed cradle. The paradox made her chest ache with both amusement and sorrow. The Jelkin thudded its claw again. If Deathworlder is here, it should be found. We deserve to know who shares our hall. Its voice carried authority, and several nodded in agreement. A ripple of unease passed through the group. Mira kept her expression blank, Her pulse quickened. If they pressed the instructors, if the academy revealed the truth, everything would change. Instead, she stood. The motion was quiet, but drew every eye. "You are all certain of so many things," she said, her tone even, almost detached. "But has any of you actually met one?" A silence followed. No one answered. She let the pause linger just long enough, then sat back down. The tension drained a little, as their attention shifted again, back to competing with each other over whose rumor was wilder. But a few glanced at her longer than before, curious, suspicious, unsettled. Mira folded her hands and breathed slowly. She would need to be careful. The storm of stories was only growing stronger, and the longer she sat among them, the closer they were to realizing the truth. The rumors did not die down in the following days. If anything, they thickened like a storm cloud, curling into every corner of the academy. Hallways buzzed with speculation. Lecture halls filled with whispers before instructors arrived, and even the mess hall echoed with stories of the Deathworlder. Mira learned quickly to move carefully, to listen without reacting, to wear her stillness like armor. She blended in during meals, ate slowly, while the others recounted more absurd tales. Humans drinking molten metal for warmth, humans sprinting faster than atmospheric flyers, humans tearing apart war machines with bare hands. It was astonishing how many of her classmates could confidently speak on something they had never seen. She discovered a pattern. The more fearful species leaned into dread, describing Deathworlders as monsters of hunger and violence. Others admired them from a distance, turning them into legends of strength. Both kinds of rumors made her skin crawl. She didn't know which was worse, being feared like a beast, or admired like a weapon. During one afternoon session, her study group gathered in a circular chamber lined with living crystal. The room was meant to inspire calm, glowing with a slow heartbeat of light. Instead, the conversation spiraled into speculation about who among the cadets might secretly be the human. "Perhaps it is one of the tall species," suggested the Vera, flicking its tail nervously. "Their size alone could hide such origins." "Nonsense," countered the Jelkin, always eager to dominate. "The Deathworlder would reveal itself in combat drill. None of you move with the quiet precision such a thing must have." Mira kept her eyes on her notes, heart steady, pencil moving in meaningless patterns. A curious urn tilted its head toward her. "Mira, you speak little, yet you observe much. Tell us, what would you do if the Deathworlder sat beside you?" It was a trap of a question, one that begged for either fear or bravado. She closed her notebook, hands folded neatly. "I suppose I would do the same as I do with all of you," she said softly. "Listen, learn, and survive the day." Her answer seemed to satisfy them, though the Gelen narrowed its eyes as if sensing a deeper current. Later in the training halls, the unease became sharper. Combat practice placed cadets in mixed-species squads, each tasked with disarming drones that simulated hostile forces. Mira moved carefully, never too fast, never showing the full measure of her strength. She knew she could outrun, outlast, and outthink the drones better than most, but blending in required restraint. She stumbled once deliberately to make it seem like she lagged behind. A Varathi hissed at her clumsiness, and she accepted the scolding without response. It was a delicate performance, and it weighed on her more heavily each day. In the locker alcove after drills, Mira overheard two Jelkin cadets speaking in their gravelly voices. "The Deathworlder must be hidden among us. I can feel it. The instructors test us with its presence, then we should uncover it, force it to reveal itself." Their laughter was sharp and eager. Mira buttoned her training jacket and slipped away before they could notice her listening. That night, sleep evaded her. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling panels, the glow shifting through soft patterns meant to soothe cadets into rest. Her mind replayed the rumors again and again, each one heavier than the last. What if they did uncover her? What if the academy revealed the truth before she was ready? She imagined the faces of her classmates twisting from curiosity to fear, from camaraderie to suspicion. The thought hollowed her chest. The next morning, the academy gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, a cavernous dome filled with rows upon rows of cadets. The high instructor addressed them, speaking of interstellar diplomacy, of the need to understand the strange and the frightening. Mira sat among thousands, her hands clasped tight, listening as the instructor spoke of coexistence. Yet woven into the lesson was a pointed reminder: there are species among us born of hostile worlds. To know them is to confront the limits of our own understanding. The crowd shifted uneasily, murmurs rippling like waves. The rumor had reached the highest levels of discourse now. After the assembly, Mira's closest study group walked together across the academy grounds. The very leaned down to the urn, whispering just loud enough. "Did you hear? The Deathworlder may be in our year." The urn clicked in alarm. "If so, it has watched us, learned from us. That is dangerous." Mira inhaled slowly, keeping her stride steady. The Jelkin walked at her side, eyes narrowed as if measuring her step, her silence, her every breath. When they reached the dormitory, the Jelkin paused before the entrance and spoke in a low growl. "If I find the Deathworlder, I will challenge it. Only then will we see if the stories are true." Its stare lingered on her a moment longer before it turned away. Mira exhaled when the door sealed behind her. She sat on her bunk, listening to the hum of the academy around her, and pressed her palm against her chest. Her heartbeat was steady, human, fragile, and fierce at once. They told stories about creatures who could never be broken. Yet here she was, already tired from hiding. She wondered how much longer she could keep her truth invisible, and what would happen the day someone looked past the rumors and saw her for what she was. The tension only deepened as weeks turned into a quiet rhythm of study, drills, and speculation. Mira had perfected the art of invisibility. Not too fast, not too strong, not too brilliant. She learned how to let the others take credit during group exercises, how to nod in agreement while hiding the sharper questions that burned at the back of her mind. Yet the rumors continued to swell, and with them the sharp eyes of those who longed to prove themselves by finding the hidden predator. It was during a planetary survival exercise that the facade grew harder to hold. The cadets were dropped in teams on a barren training world by Needland, a place of jagged cliffs and whipping winds, tasked with building shelters and signaling for extraction within 3 days. Mira's squad worked clumsily. The Varathi wanted to dig burrows. The urn insisted on weaving shelters from the sparse brush. The Jelkin argued that brute force would yield caves. Their voices clashed until the first night fell cold and merciless. Mira watched frost settle on their gear, listened to their shivering complaints, and knew she could solve the problem in an hour if she stopped pretending. She forced herself to stay quiet until the second night, when the wind grew sharp enough to cut through their thin covering. The youngest Uring nearly collapsed, mandibles clicking weakly. Mira exhaled and finally spoke. "We need to use the rock walls, build against them, not away. The stone will hold heat if we trap it." The others stared. The Gel scoffed but followed when she began hauling stones into place. Soon, they had a crude barrier, a corner that held back the worst of the wind. Mira moved with practiced efficiency, arranging brush, layering dirt, guiding them until the structure held together. By the time the second night passed, the squad had warmth where before they had none. No one thanked her, but they watched her more closely afterward. The Jelkin's gaze lingered with suspicion, and the Varathi hissed a comment under its breath about unnatural knowledge. Mira kept her face blank, though inside her heart pounded. She had revealed too much. When the training world released them and the shuttles carried them back to the academy, whispers followed her down the gangway. "Too calm," one urn muttered. "Too precise." The Jelkin's growl rumbled like thunder. "Perhaps we have found it." Mira bit her tongue and walked faster, refusing to let her shoulders stiffen. Days later, during combat drills, the test came. Squads were ordered into the arena against drones programmed to escalate their tactics each round. Mira fought carefully, striking just late enough that her blows seemed ordinary, never revealing the full speed that hummed in her muscles. But during the final round, a drone feinted toward the Varathi and then lunged at the smallest urn. Instinct took Mira, before thought. She moved faster than she ever had before, intercepting the strike, slamming the drone to the floor with a twist of its arm joint that sent metal shrieking. The arena went silent. The urn trembled. Unharmed, the drone sparked at her feet, and all around her, eyes wide. The Jelkin stepped forward, voice low and heavy. Only a Deathworlder could move like that. The words rippled through the squad, suspicion hardening into something sharper. Mira forced herself to breathe evenly. She crouched, inspecting the drone as if nothing unusual had happened. "Anyone trained well could have done the same," she said, her voice controlled. But she could feel the doubt thickening, wrapping around her like smoke. That evening, whispers shadowed her down every corridor. Cadets who once ignored her now parted to let her pass, staring at her back. In the mess hall, voices dropped when she sat. A urn actually moved its tray away from hers. The label had begun to stick, even without proof. The Deathworlder among them had a face now, and it was hers. In her dormitory, Mira pressed her palms against her eyes, weary. She had not asked for this role, this endless mask. She had only wanted to study, to learn what the wider galaxy offered. Yet every step revealed her to be both more and less than what they imagined, more capable than they knew, less monstrous than they feared. But to them, nuance was irrelevant. Fear was simpler. The next day the High Instructor announced a new trial, a full squad exercise in the outer training zones, where natural hazards mingled with simulated combat. Mira's name was listed beside the Jelkin, the Verati, and the Jelkin's eyes gleamed when it saw the assignment. To it, this was an opportunity. To Mira, it was a warning. She would need to survive not only the trial, but also the growing hunger of their peers to unmask the Deathworld they so desperately feared. As they assembled at the transport bay, the Jelkin leaned close enough for her to hear. In the wild, secrets cannot hide. I will see your truth before the trial ends. Mira met its eyes calmly, though her stomach twisted. Around them, the others adjusted gear, oblivious to the quiet threat. The transport doors hissed open, and the squad stepped into the shadow of the unknown. The transport dropped them into the outer training zone with a roar of engines and a spray of dust. The landscape was harsh, jagged ridges, pockets of black stone, and air so thin it stung the lung. The squad carried rations, signal beacons, and their training blades. The trial was simple on paper. Survive 3 days, evade drones, and complete the objectives marked on their scanners. But nothing about the ground beneath their boots felt simple. Mira inhaled and let the thin air burn her chest. Survival came naturally to her. Hiding who she was did not. The Jelkin took command, barking orders, setting a hard pace. The Verati slithered along the rocks, antenna flicking for signs of drones. The Uran scurried in anxious pairs. Mira followed quietly, conserving her energy, watching the terrain. Each step reminded her of Earth's mountain paths, where sharp rocks cut boots and storms rolled in without warning. Her muscles remembered long hikes, endless climbs, while rain and cold bit harder than this thin air. The others grew weary by nightfall, stumbling, panting. Mira carried their packs when they slowed, pretending it was nothing. She told herself not to show too much, but compassion overruled calculation. On the second day, the trial sharpened. Drones descended in hunting packs, their red eyes glowing in the gloom. The squad scrambled, blades clashing against metal. Mira fought at the edge, holding back, letting the Jelkin dominate the fray. But one drone darted past, heading straight for the smallest Uran again. The creature froze, mandibles clicking in panic. Without hesitation, Mira leapt forward, slammed her shoulder into the drone, and sent it crashing into the rocks. Her blade sliced in a single precise motion, sparks bursting like stars. Silence fell, broken only by the Uran's shaky breath. The Jelkin growled low. There again, too strong, too fast. Its eyes locked on her, suspicion hardening into certainty. The squad regrouped uneasily, but the atmosphere had shifted. They obeyed the Jellin's commands with sidelong glances toward Mira, as though waiting for her to bear fangs she did not have. She carried the weight of their mistrust like a stone in her chest. That night, they camped in a shallow hollow. The Jelkin stood guard, but Mira did not trust the gleam in its gaze. She slept lightly, waking at the sound of shifting claws. When dawn broke, the Jellin's plan became clear. It called the squad together and pointed its blade at Mira. She is the Deathworlder. I will prove it. Challenge her now. The Verati hissed in alarm. The Uran backed away, antenna quivering. Mira stood calm on the surface, though her heart raced. I am no threat to you, she said evenly. But the Jelkin lunged, forcing the fight. Its claws swept wide, its strength impressive, but Mira's instincts burned too deep to suppress. She dodged, parried, and when it pressed harder she struck. Her movements were efficient, decisive, honed by a lifetime on Earth, where even the simplest environment demanded endurance. In moments, the Jellin lay pinned, her blade at its throat, the rocks scarred around them. The others stared, speechless. Mira stepped back, lowering her weapon. This is what you wanted to see. Fine. The stories you whisper are about my people. I am human. I am the Deathworlder you fear. The words hung heavy in the cold air. The Uran trembled. The Virai hissed softly. The Jellin, pride wounded, snarled, but could not rise. Mira breathed steadily. You think we are monsters. But you are wrong. We survive. Yes, we endure what others cannot. But that is not rage or savagery. It is necessity. On Earth, we learned to live with storms, with predators, with sickness. We did not choose that life. It shaped us. It made us clever. It made us stubborn. It made us human. Her voice softened, almost pleading. I am not here to hunt you. I am here to learn beside you. If that frightens you, then perhaps you should ask why survival itself is so terrifying to you. The silence stretched long. The Varathe finally lowered its tail. She saved us twice. Fear does not change that. The smaller Urim clicked, a trembling sound, then nodded. Even the Jellin, though seething, did not speak again. The remainder of the trial passed under that heavy They worked together, though unease lingered. Mira stopped pretending. She carried the heaviest loads, cut through the harshest terrain, dismantled drones with skill no one could ignore. By the third day, when the extraction beacon pulsed and the transport arrived, the squad was alive because of her. That truth, even if unspoken, was undeniable. Back at the academy, the instructors were fully aware. They chose not to expose her identity to the wider student body. Still, her squad knew, and the truth moved quietly, from one whisper to another. This time, however, the rumor carried a face not the shadow of a monster, but the image of a reserved girl, with dark hair, who had been beside them all along. Fear did not disappear in a single moment, yet it reshaped itself into something different. Awe, curiosity, and an uneasy respect. Mira no longer lowered her gaze as she walked the halls. She carried herself with steady confidence, unwilling to fade into silence. Though she had never wished for her secret to be unveiled, once it was, she would not shrink away. The galaxy demanded to see what a Deathworlder truly meant, and now they would. Not a beast, not a weapon, a human. Someone who could endure, yes, but also choose compassion, even when mere survival would have been enough. Whispers still followed her steps, but the tone had changed. They no longer spoke only of monsters and myths. Now they asked questions. They wondered. For the first time since her arrival, Mira felt a burden lift from her shoulders. The mask had fallen, and in its place remained not fear, but truth.